All right, so real quick, the SolarEdge solution, we do have a couple of different components. We've got the inverters, we've got the optimizers, we've got the monitoring portal. We need ways for information to get from the inverters to the World Wide Web, so there's communication infrastructure. And throughout all of these products, we continually make innovations. So as you can see down here, we've got the HD Wave inverter currently shipping in the 3,000 to 3,800 watt power classes. The rest of the power class is supported by the single phase inverter. We have storage products at the 7,600 power class, the monitoring platform. We've got apps. The power optimizers in commercial do go up to the P800. The new one for today we'll talk about is the P370. And then in three phase, we have all the way from 9 kilowatts to 33.3 kilowatts, and that's AC power. All of these can be oversized to 1.35 AC or DC to AC ratio. So that's kind of the portfolio as an overview. I do want to introduce Jeffrey Pound, also known as JP. You can just call him JP. That way you won't misspell his name. Field support engineer. He's just an expert on all the new stuff. So he's kind of got his nose to the grindstone with headquarters. He knows all of the R&D products that are coming out. And just want to introduce him. He's going to be our main speaker today and talk to you about the latest releases of products that we've been issuing. And I will turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead and get started here. Like Mike said, we're going to talk about the HD Wave product, some updates there, storage updates, the optimizer with the new P370, talk about some metering updates, the commercial GSM cellular product, weather stations and satellite-based performance ratio calculations, and some SEC reporting specific to the East Coast. Starting out with the HD Wave update. If everyone's familiar with it, look, we had quite a few people there that were familiar with this overall product release. Some key points to hit on. We've already had one of the most efficient, smallest inverters in the industry, and we continue to excel in that range. So our newest inverter is about half the size and half the weight of the current line. We've already released the 3 and 3.8 kilowatt models, as Mike said. We're also in the process right now. The 5 kilowatt line is being transferred over now for stock, as stock works its way through. We've got a 99% weighted efficiency, which is the highest efficiency on the CEC list. Better overall components for increased reliability, which has allowed us to reduce the extended warranty cost. This line will actually allow oversizing up to 155%. And by raising the DC string voltage, we're actually going to be able to increase the string length as well. So we're going to be able to 5,700 watts for the 3 through 6K models. And once we get closer on the 7.6, we'll have a release on that one as well. It's actually going to be even a little bit higher. We've got the optional built-in revenue grade meter. This is a product that we've generally been, that we've had for several years now. And coming into the current world of metering, we're going to talk about how ANSI C1220 has taken over in some key places and how SolarEdge has responded to that. So some updates on the HD Wave. One new addition is that we've got the minus 40 degree HD Wave now. If you're familiar with our previous line of products, we've always had a minus 25 and a minus 40 degree version. The reason for that is actually the LCD screen. Needs to be a little bit more robust for cold weather environments, but otherwise pretty much the same. But we do have that minus 40 availability now in the HD Wave platform as well. And as I just mentioned previously, we've added the revenue grade meter to the HD Wave product. When we first released it, that was those two part numbers weren't quite available yet. As I mentioned, the 5K HD Wave is shipping now. The 6000 SE6000H will be available in late June, and we'll be doing the 7600 later this summer. Moving on to SolarEdge, we've basically changed the part number here a little bit. So the SE7600A-US is the key product in the storage product line. The storage part is basically built around the pre-existing CEC listing for the SE7600A-US. The next two letters there in the part number, the S0 or the S2, are the next two letters in that part number, and that designate that it is a storage unit, and then it designates whether or not it is the first generation or second generation storage product. Second generation storage product is higher power. Basically, it can discharge and provide more backup power, and it also allows the ability for surge and the simultaneous discharge of multiple batteries in a system that has more than one connected, specifically two, because as that's will be a limit. Both of these products will work with the Tesla Powerwall 6.4 kilowatt battery system and the LG Resu 10H. The Tesla Powerwall initial product availability, they're ramping down. They moved on to their Powerwall 2, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. And the LG Resu 10H is in the process of being released now. The wide availability is we're right on the cusp of those going out to customers. So we'll be seeing a lot more of those in the field here very soon. As we mentioned, the Storage 2, the S2, has a greater charge and discharge capacity. Basically, the first version was built for the Powerwall product, which had a limitation of about 3.5 kilowatt continuous discharge. In the process of going to the higher, bigger sized batteries, we worked that up to about a 6.6 charge and discharge capacity. And the reason we did that was for these two products. Was for the product that we have, which is the Resu 10H. I should say the product that LG Chem has that we're working with, and that's available now. So check with your distributors. As I mentioned, both versions of the storage product will work with that. The other battery that we were planning on working with was the Tesla Powerwall 2 DC coupled solution. They have decided to discontinue that model. They're going strictly with the AC Powerwall 2, and we will continue to work with them. It will actually be an AC coupled solution working with the Tesla Powerwall 2 AC, so you wouldn't be using a storage inverter connected to that. You would just use a normal SolarEdge inverter, and the conversion and control aspects will be controlled by the Tesla Powerwall 2 AC. And as we mentioned, the previous Powerwall version is continuing to be supported. Most of those have already been sold. Quite a few of them have been installed, but there are still a handful of them out there that have not gotten put on homes yet. So we're still seeing calls coming in for that product as well. So some basic configurations and reasons why you would want a StoraEdge. Obviously, self-consumption. If you can store energy in the middle of the day when you're producing it and using less in your home, and then using it to discharge at night, then you're not having to basically rely on net metering to the grid to push power back and forth. You're just able to save the excess power you've generated during the day and discharge it in the evening. The other opportunity with this product is for backup. So if you're in a situation where you've got unreliable grid configuration, or if you're in a location that that frequently loses power in large storms or in winter, this is a product that's going to give you the opportunity to provide some backup to some key loads in your home and be able to keep the lights on in that situation. It also will allow you to charge the battery in an off-grid situation. So if the storage is providing power to your backup loads panel, for instance, but the PV input from the sun exceeds the needs of the loads, that excess power can actually be used to recharge the battery during the day. So if you're not using all of that power, it can continue to operate actually for effectively indefinitely, assuming the battery doesn't ever fully discharge. So that's what the illustration there on the right of the screen is kind of describing there. We're going to talk about some key parts of the storage solution. On the far left here, we've got the SolarEdge single-phase storage inverter. Really the only difference, as I mentioned, the key portion of the inverter itself is the same as the normal SolarEdge 7600 inverter. I like to refer to it as kind of the waist-up view of that picture. That inverter is effectively the same as every other SolarEdge 7600 inverter. The difference is in the what we call the BCU portion, which is the bottom half. You'll notice that the disconnect portion there is considerably larger than our other inverters, and the reason for that is there's quite a bit of technology built into that, specifically the input for the batteries, the pairing on that for all the communications that are associated between the battery systems and the inverter, as well as the automatic transfer switch, which allows the system to go into backup mode and isolate itself from the grid. So that's what's going on in there. To the next item to the right is the SolarEdge electricity meter. One of the key factors in being able to maximize your self-consumption, which was one of the key roles of this product, is to be able to monitor the input and output current going to the home, so that the system knows whether or not, what condition the home is in. If you're sending power to the grid and your battery's not fully charged, well, in that condition, you want to be charging your battery rather than sending power to the grid. So this is the product that's going to be inserted into the main service panel, generally speaking between the meter and the main service panel, to monitor the direction of current flow at that point. There's quite a few applications for this product, and we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. But this is the key role that we're seeing it being used for. The next thing over here to the right, one other thing, it's only needed for on-grid applications. So if you're specifically building out a storage system with the key role of only doing backup, you really don't need this product. That being said, it's still good to have because it allows you to monitor things like consumption, without, even if you're not using functionality based on its ability. The next product over is the auto transformer. Conversely to the electricity meter, this is only required if you want to do backup power. So backup power for a home does involve a little extra work. There, you have to generate a secondary service panel, basically a backup loads panel in the home, moving some of the loads from the main service panel to whatever it is that you want to back up. The second half of that is the addition of the auto transformer. When the inverter goes away from the grid, it loses the neutral connection provided by the grid, and it does not inherently balance the loads on the output phases. What the auto transformer does is basically balances the loads and provides that neutral, so that your 120 volt loads in the home are able to be run off this product, without throwing it out of balance, basically. And then on the far right here, we've got the 6.4 kilowatt battery. Also, of course, our 10 kilowatt battery from our LG partner, the 6.4 kilowatt battery coming from Tesla. Available for maximizing self-consumption and powering backup loads. This is a solution that is a little bit different from most other battery backup systems. We operate with a high voltage battery with a DC to DC converter built into it. So basically the Tesla and LG products are smarter than your average battery, and that allows us to control them, at a high voltage. So basically the inverter only has to take DC and make AC out of it once, and it doesn't have to keep switching back and forth like it does in an AC coupled solution. So just to point out a few differences here between the initial high capacity, which was the first generation, and the high power, which is the second generation storage inverters. Again, the inverter itself is basically the same. So your overall kilowatt production value when you're on the grid is 7.6 kilowatts. With the high power unit, we're actually able to provide 5 kilowatts continuous steady state power from the high power unit, whereas the high capacity unit was limited to 3.3. We are also able to provide power for some surge. So, short term, less than 10 seconds, we can actually exceed the 5 kilowatt limit using these combined products, assuming there's the battery backup, or the battery power there to support. And battery and PV in the situation where you're actually off grid, but providing power from both the PV and the battery at the same time. The DC power from the battery, basically the same same limits here. This is actually a little more related to the battery products themselves, but that's the background of why we raised the power surge and the power backup, is to support these battery solutions. One big difference between them is the number of batteries that you can connect and how they're able to discharge. So the first generation, you could have one or two batteries, but they could only discharge sequentially, meaning you had to fully discharge one before it moved on to the second. With the high power product, again, we can have one or two batteries connected to it, but they're actually able to do simultaneous discharge, which allows us to get up to the higher value for our backup surge and so forth. So even in the consideration where we've got the Tesla Powerwall product, which is only capable of about 3.3 kilowatts individually, having two batteries connected at the same time means you can get 6.6 kilowatts out of both of them. Again, why we kind of designed it the way we did for the second generation here. Backup auto transformer, which we talked about in the previous slide, obviously available. The metering is available. The warranty covered is the same as our normal inverters for 12 years. And then the supported systems here, we've got the Tesla Powerwall 1, works with both. The Tesla Powerwall 2, we actually need to update this slide a little bit because Tesla Powerwall 2, they're not coming out with the DC coupled solution, so this is a little inaccurate. What is more accurate here is the LG Resu 10 here at the bottom. Having one connected to a high capacity unit is limited to 3.3 kilowatts because that is a limit of the inverter itself. And then the high power unit will be supported. LG is in the process. They've released one part number at this point, and that one part number is for an inverter with a Modbus ID that is not configurable. They have announced and are making plans to release a second part number, either changing the part number such that the Modbus ID is configurable, or releasing a second product with a built-in different Modbus ID. So it is important to know that while the storage system will support two LG Resu 10H batteries, the two that you could potentially get right now will not be covered. So it's totally fine to go and buy one right now and permit for two and wait for the second product to be available from LG. They have announced that they expect to have that available this summer. But any two that you were to purchase right now would not be able to be connected to the same inverter. So that's a product's update that we're waiting for from LG on that regard. A little more information on the LG Resu 10H batteries. Overall energy available is 9.8 kilowatt hours. Peak power continuous is 5 kilowatt hours, which goes in line with the ratings which we previously showed you for the SolarEdge 2 product. Peak power of 7 kilowatt hours, right there with the 6.6 on the SolarEdge. The DC bus voltage, so this is how these DC coupled systems work with SolarEdge. So if you're familiar with our products, generally speaking, our DC bus voltage on the input coming from the optimizers is maintained at a steady state voltage coming from the optimizers, generally at about 350 volts for our previous generation of inverters. And those values are going to change a little bit with the HD wave as we increase that voltage so we can get longer strings. But the reason that this is able to work with us in a DC coupled solution is on the exact same inputs that the inverter sees from the optimizers, the battery is connected to as well. And as the inverter actually changes the DC bus voltage by varying its input, is how we control the DC to DC controller in the battery system. Weighs approximately 214 pounds. You can put it inside or outside. And it does need to be wall mounted. So the one note that we had recently is that, it was a little unclear whether or not that was something that could be mounted on the ground. It has been confirmed that that is a wall mounted solution only and has a 10-year warranty. The current product with the SolarEdge 2, the high power storage product, is currently available. We've actually been selling them since about January, replacing the SO line that was previously available. So there is hardware that exists in the field that is possibly a little bit different, and I'm sorry, not physically different. The firmware that's actually loaded on the inverters that may already be out there may need to be updated, as we've only recently released firmware that supports the LG battery. So that's the reason for this slide. Basically, what we're describing here is that if you do have a system, if you do have a storage system that you're going to be connecting an LG battery to, you are going to need to make sure that the battery itself, that the storage inverter itself is upgraded to a firmware version that will support operating with the battery. We've got some instructions here. Basically, what you need to do for the time being is contact our support team, and they'll get that file to you. If you have a micro SD card, we can just send you the file via email. And if you don't, we can put it on a micro SD card and send it to you in the mail if needed. Eventually, this step will not be required, as the manufacturing will be using a version that supports it coming out of the factory. But for the time being, if you're going to use the LG battery, you will need to do that firmware update. And the support team also has a full instruction application note they can send you along with that explains how to go through this setting. But it's pretty easy. You basically take out the activation card. Once that part is done, you turn the AC power off. You put the new update card in. Turn the AC power back on. It'll recognize that there's a new card in there, and it will go through with a firmware update. Okay, now we're going to talk about the new optimizer, the P370. This product was basically built for higher efficiency 60 cell modules, similar to all of our other optimizer products, though. What it really comes down to is not so much the topology of the module, but the specifics. Where we were a little lacking previously in being able to support this was the fact that the short circuit current for this product was higher than 10 amps, which was the previous input limit for some of our similar products, specifically the P400. So we've made this new optimizer. It can take a little bit more current. It's going to widen our current and voltage ranges to allow bigger products. So there are some 60 cell and even some 72 cell modules where this is going to work well for, including some bifacial modules and a little more side cases. But in the long run, basically what you always want to do is be using our Site Designer product to be verifying that you're using the correct optimizer for the module you selected. Here you can kind of see a comparison across the bottom here of the different optimizers we have. The key point I want to point out as a difference here, the P320 and the P370 products, again, like I mentioned, are the 11 amp inputs. This is where we kind of were lacking previously in the P400 product. We found that we really didn't need the voltage window the P400 supplied to get to where we were at. What we're seeing with these different lines of modules, what we really needed was that extra current. As we described here at the top, we try to design optimizers to meet, any module that's in mass manufacturing. So, we are constantly in contact with module manufacturers. We keep in touch with their roadmaps and try to work along with them to make sure we always have product that's going to support, their upcoming products as well. And as always, we provide module level data. Power, energy, actually reports, the inputs to the optimizer as well as each one of the optimizer's outputs. So that's one of the things that you're able to actually see on the monitoring portal, which will help you diagnose issues and find problems when those arise. Okay, the next update we're going to talk about is metering. So the first product we're going to mention here is the residential revenue grade meter. If you're familiar with our product or use the revenue grade meter frequently, you'll notice down here in the bottom right hand side of the screen we've got an image of one of our Wattnote Modbus meters. To buy a revenue grade inverter, we call it a revenue grade inverter. A revenue grade inverter has this meter built into it off the shelf. So there's not an additional part that you need to buy for this. It's just the specific inverter. All of our single phase systems have this available. Here recently, the states of Connecticut and New Hampshire changed their SREC requirements for reporting such that they needed ANSI C1220 meter or accuracy for residential size systems. So what we did was we did some research. We built a new meter that met that requirement, and we slowly are kind of working it into the data flow. So we're only going to maintain having one part number. And on this, actually, we'll come back to that note. I think it might have been removed. One thing worth noting, we previously had an ANSI C12.1 meter. Now we have an ANSI C1220 meter. We created a new part number, has the C2 at the end, which was the indication that it's the C1220 meter. We started selling that specifically for Connecticut and New Hampshire, and then as the R2, which was the previous revenue grade meter with the ANSI C12.1, went out of stock, we're going to discontinue selling that. We always want to be selling the product that's the best overall across the line, and reducing the number of parts that our distributors are required to carry on their shelves. So, whichever is the best is the one that we want to be using. So as the R2 and C12.1 meters are used up out of stock, the C1220 meters will take over for that. Next product we're going to talk about is the SolarEdge electricity meter. We previously mentioned this in regards to the StorageEdge product. This is the same meter. And as I mentioned previously, it gets connected generally speaking, between the meter itself and, the home's utility meter and the main service panel. So the two CTs you see on the top right-hand side of the screen are what gets installed inside the main service panel. It allows the system to monitor import and export grid power values, and then it uses that to calculate consumption values, both home consumption and self-consumption. So it'll tell you how much of the energy generated by the PV system or the battery system, was not only how much was used, how much the house uses, but how much you actually generated yourself and used yourself. As we mentioned, it supports the StorageEdge product. In Hawaii, they've actually got a requirement now for a zero export solution. Zero export in Hawaii basically means that the system is not allowed to discharge back to the grid. They've got a lot of PV there, and it's reaching saturation, so they want to minimize the amount of PV that goes back to the grid. So in doing that, how this works is those CTs are put in this meter in the same position as I described previously. It monitors, and when the system starts pushing current back to the grid, it curtails power coming from the inverter. One note on the CTs, they are a little on the large side. There's quite a few products that will actually work with this meter on the CT side. We've got an application note coming out about that in the next few months, about different CTs, but if you actually look at the ratings on the input, the important bit is that the voltage input, which we can, if you have any questions about, you can submit separately. What we found is because these CTs that we're using are actually really, really good CTs. They are accurate down to 1% of rated current. And what that allows us to do with this product is things like zero export. We're trying to keep that current going back and forth to the grid as close to zero as possible. So using CTs that are really good is required for doing that. If you look at the CT industry, a lot of them, most of them really, their accuracy is great, but usually only over 5 or 10% of rated current. So when you're trying to look at very specific values on the low end of that range, they're not quite as great. The ones that we are selling specifically are extremely accurate down at that lower end. They are a little bigger though, and they're sometimes for different kinds of installations, they make the installation a little difficult. It may require an additional service panel to be built, or even changing out of a service panel to get them in. So we have, our support team is kind of aware of this. We have pointed customers in a number of directions for other CTs that are available, Rogowski coils, which were much more flexible. So there are other products that work with our same meter, if that is something that you need to find for, especially difficult locations for installation. One of the great things about this product, as it mentions here, is great for customer visibility. Most homeowners don't really understand when they're using power, how much any individual load in their home is using. This gives them the opportunity to see, when they're using the most power in their day, and how they can be more energy efficient themselves, as well as supplying all of the different control functions that it does with our system independently. The meter itself and the enclosure, the meter comes installed in the enclosure on a DIN rail inside of it. So you see the little box there behind the meter. That is now being sold separately. When we first released the product, we released it as two part numbers, one with 200 amp CTs and one with 400 amp CTs. Because of the issue with customers wanting to use different CTs, we've gone to selling the meter and the enclosure as one part number. So you'll just get that product. Works great with our systems. And we sell the 200 and 400 amp CTs separately. So those will actually both be sold in boxes of 20. So you'll still have both of those bits available, but if you don't need our CTs and you just want to use our meter, that's fine too. Our next product is the commercial revenue grade meter. So unlike the single phase revenue grade meters, our three-phase revenue grade meters are not going to be pre-installed inside of the inverter. Most three-phase large commercial systems have more than one inverter. And rather than trying to put a meter in every single one of them, we've decided that it makes more sense, and customers will much more likely want to put one meter in that reads the output of several. So these products, we're going to have a 208 and 480 volt version available this summer. You can place your orders now. This will be similar to the SolarEdge electricity meter product in that you can use it for multiple functions, for production or consumption monitoring. And if it's put in at the import-export point, again, it can actually do both. The big difference here is that this meter is ANSI C1220 rated, whereas the electricity meter is not. The electricity meter is accurate to within 2.5%, I believe. This meter is actually accurate down to 0.5% accuracy. So that's kind of that and the voltage are the big differentiators between the electricity meter and the commercial revenue grade meter products. The meters are, again, they're going to be sold separately from the CTs. In this case, the reason for that is we're going to be selling 3 different CT sizes, but they'll be sold in kits of 3, which you will need for a 3-phase system, obviously, at 150 amps, 300 amps, and 600 amps. So if you're doing installations where you need revenue grade metering on 3-phase systems, you're still going to have those options for metering the output of multiple inverters. If you do have an installation that's going to be rated over 600 amps, it will require the addition of additional meter and basically branch circuits for monitoring them individually.
There was a question on that, and so that's why I'm maybe pause on that one. There's somebody who's looking at a 800 amp service for a commercial system.
Okay, so for an 800 amp service for a commercial system, basically you would need 2 of these meters. I would recommend using a 1 600 and 1 300 amp, and then have basically the branch circuit that will need to be generated in the way that the meter or the inverters are interlinked to the service. Combining approximately 600 and between 5 and 600 and between 2 and 300 on the different branch circuits, so that you can monitor those independently.
Okay, so the physical wires, you'd have to have a bundle that's around 600 and a bundle that's
Correct.
Less than 300, and put the CT clamps around those wires.
Correct.
Okay. So hopefully that
not necessarily a bundle, but if you think of it in terms of a branch circuit where you're bringing multiple inputs into one line.
And then you're going to combine it?
You're going to combine it at, for instance, a distribution panel, and then clamp around the output of that distribution panel back to a main service panel.
Okay.
So in situations where there's main service panels smaller than 600 amps, you would only need one, and you could put it at the panel itself. If you've got to do a distribution network to get under 600 amps, or if you're going over 600 amps, you need to have a distribution system that you can split it up.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. Again, this product's going to be available this summer, and you can place your orders for it now. Okay, so residential meters, as we mentioned, we've got 3 part numbers now. This is the meter itself, the SEMTR 240. This is available now. One mention to note on this: the data sheet for this product is currently in the process of being updated. The currently available data sheet will tell you that there's 2 part numbers: one for a meter with 20 amp CTs, one with a meter with 400 amp CTs. Sorry, 200 amp and 400 amp CTs. We've changed that in the last couple months, and the data sheet has not been updated yet, but it will be very soon. So there is actually 3 part numbers now associated the meter and the two different CT options. For the commercial meters, as we mentioned, there's going to be a 480 and a 208 volt version, depending on what grid connection type you're talking about, and then kits of 350, 300, or 600 amp CTs to go along with those. And then to note here, residential systems require 2 CTs. When we talk about these part numbers at the top, the box of 20, that's basically enough CTs for 10 installations. We just don't want to make sure that that's clear, because you have to monitor both phases on the input and output of the home, not just one of them. So you have to have 2, and then obviously for 3-phase, you need to have 3. So that's about all we've got there. And now we're going to move on to the commercial GSM product. So the commercial GSM product basically will allow you to connect a GSM cellular modem to really any one of our inverters, and allow that inverter to share its its connection to the internet, to the SolarEdge monitoring portal with other inverters. We currently do have a residential GSM product. That residential product is only for the use with a single phase inverter. And it is only good for 1 inverter per modem. This is a pretty big difference in regards to the commercial version, as this one will allow you to connect up to 500 kilowatts DC on 1 modem. So as you can see in this illustration in the top right-hand side here, it's supplying it to, we've got 4 inverters in this solution. There's, basically whatever else you want to use. The limit of the 500 kilowatts DC is related to the data plan sizes, and basically each one of the inverters and each one of the optimizers connected to the system use data, because we're sending update information from all of those individual parts to the monitoring portal so that you can see all that data there. So each one of those parts is going to require some data. So we've calculated it out with the addition of meters and products like our weather station. This is basically the appropriate data size for as many products as we think are going to be connected here. This commercial product is also, even if you're using only 1 inverter, but a 3-phase inverter, so a single 9, 10, 20, or 33K inverter, you would need this product, as the residential inverter, the residential GSM modem is not appropriately sized for those. One big difference between the residential product and this commercial product, however, is that the commercial product is going to stay connected all of the time. Data will constantly be sent to the portal. You'll get 5-minute telemetry information in real time constantly, versus the residential product, where it only collects telemetry information every 15 minutes and only uploads to the portal once every 4 hours. So for this commercial product, it is going to have a stronger connection, and it's going to be basically live all of the time. So that's the continuous data link note there. The 5-year data plan is going to be sold separately. So the modem itself will be sold through distributors, but then you'll need to purchase the data plan per inverter separately, and that sale will go directly through SolarEdge. Eventually, we will have a portal built into our website, SolarEdge.com, where you'll be able to purchase that data plan directly, automatically through that. While that's being generated, because we are selling this product already, we've developed a process. Basically, there's a form that's included in each one of the modems that are being sold now. It's going to ask you for whatever the master inverter the modem is installed in, and the number of slave inverters that are connected to it, and then the billing will be worked out that way in regards to the per inverter cost for this product and for the data plan. This will also be the new CCG2 product that we'll be releasing here soon. We're going to see a little bit of that here in a few minutes with regard to our new weather station, but the new CCG2 product will also allow the GSM modem to be put into it. So if you've ever used a CCG product previously, you'll probably remember that you can put in a Zigbee card in one of those, but you can't put a cellular modem. The new version will allow that. And the weather station data is included in cellular service. So for instance, if you're connecting a system, you've got a modem in one of these, the per inverter charge is for the inverters only. If you do have a weather station or any meters that are connected, there is not an additional charge for those extra products. And I pretty much covered this already. The GSM modem sold through distributors. You'll buy the data plan directly from SolarEdge. The data plans we're selling are for 5 years only. At the end of that 5 years, this is kind of one of the biggest issues with cellular in the United States. Period, is there's lots of different kinds of networks, and knowing what kind of networks really going to be available 5 or 10 years from now is impossible. So we're going to sell. 5 years is safe. Going any further than that, it starts getting questionable. So we're going to have a 5-year product with this. At the end of that 5 years, we will continue to offer some kind of cellular solution, but we can't guarantee that this one's going to continue to work at that point. We got 2 part numbers. One is for the United States, and the other one is for Canada and Mexico. And then one last note here, if you're going to have a system over 500 kilowatts, as I mentioned, that was a limit, you would need additional modems. So if you've got a 2.5 megawatt system, you'd actually need 5 of these modems to provide the data for that whole site. So it's not necessarily a limit of having just one per site if you've got a system bigger than 500 kilowatts. As I mentioned, our CCG2 product, our first iteration of that is going into what we're referring to as either a weather station or data logger. This product is going to have its own communication ability, being able to put the GSM modem in it, as I mentioned. It will be provided in an enclosure with the, and this kit is going to include the weather station equipment that will be required for performance ratio generation. We've sold basically all of these products independently before, and what we found is that a lot of customers, what they're really the most interested in, they want to put this in a lot of installations, but they want to put it in a box. This enclosure, having a weather station on a roof, it's not really very useful with a CCG to not have some kind of enclosure to put it in, and the primary use for this product at this point is as a weather station. So we're going to start selling it in the enclosure with the as a kit with the 3 environmental sensors included. The 3 meters the 3 sensors that we include, as always, are the standard products used for performance ratio calculations. The meter itself, the logger itself, the CCG2 in the box, however, can be operated with other products. So third-party pyranometers can be supported as well. If you were to have 2 of these, or this enclosure and another CCG, for instance, you could also have wind sensors. Generally speaking, that's not used as frequently. So we've focused on the products that are really being used in the field and that are necessary for generating performance ratio calculations. And this kit's going to be available this summer. Along those lines, a lot of customers just don't want to deal with weather stations. So another product that we're releasing is basically a software product being used, and it's performing these performance ratio calculations with satellite data. So there's no on-premise installation. You don't actually need to buy a weather station. It's a yearly commitment basically for the product, but we're basically going to sell the use of satellite data for temperature and irradiance so this can be performed without the need of installing these extra parts. It supports multiple tilts and orientations based on national weather sensors that are put all over the world. As far as what they're going to see on the monitoring portal, the user interface is going to be the same. You can kind of see in the image below, there's on the bottom of the illustration here, it actually says performance ratio, and it shows you basically a 0 to 1.5%. The whole idea is that you want to try to keep it as close to 1 as you can. And this data is going to be provided directly from the web portal using locally generated satellite information, to determine how much power that system approximately should have made, how much and then compare it to how much it actually did make to do the same thing as having a weather station did. This is considered to be 5% accuracy in the US, EU, and Australia. So if you look at our map here at the bottom, you can kind of see where all of these weather stations are very effectively able to monitor. It does cost less than buying the environmental sensors. So if you just want to, you build out the system, just paying for at least for the first year. The years are done in 1-year plans. So the overall cost is going to be less for customers who don't want to invest in the hardware. Anything else to mention on that one, Mike? You're a little more familiar with the satellite.
Yeah, this is brand new. It just came out. So if you are looking to order, there's an email address that you send the order request to. I don't know if we have the link here, but if you go to this page, there's a button. You just click on that. You need the inverter serial number. And you need, let me get the information for you. So it is a serial number. I think you'll need your company name, and it's just a text email form right now. There's no more automated process than that. But it's a pretty good tool. It is priced, I think, fairly competitively. So let's see. Send an email with your name, inverter serial number, and location. So that's really it. The location, I would provide at least zip code level of data because we need to make sure that there is coverage. Looking at this map, I mean, it kind of looks like the northwest of the U.S. might not be covered. This is just satellite flyovers, mainly is what you're looking at from that path. When I looked at it, it didn't seem that there were gaps. So definitely send that over. If you have a zip code, it'll help on the location.
Okay. Thank you. And if you have any issue finding this this document on our website, we're looking around a little bit for it right now.
It's there. It's under that link. So if you go under products, PV monitoring, and then satellite-based performance ratio, you can find it. So that's the link right there.
That's where it takes you to. Okay. All right, the next topic is going to be SREC reporting. I mentioned this a little bit previously before, specifically for Connecticut and New Hampshire. We had a previous version of all of our products with the revenue grade meter, which ended in R2, which was the ANSI C12-1 meter, as I mentioned. The new product, which is taking over as stock runs out, but is available now where it's needed, is the US NN C2 product, and this is available for all of our single-phase inverters, both HD Wave and the previous generation, and is available with the revenue grade meter ANSI C12-20. We are approved as an automatic reporter for Connecticut Green Bank, which is the aggregator for the SREC program in Connecticut. One requirement that is a little different for Connecticut that is not a necessity elsewhere is that they require a cellular communication. So that will require a residential GSM modem to be installed at the home to generate those SRECs. If there's any questions, there is a requirement, basically when the system's built out by installers, that they're going to basically give access to Connecticut Green Bank to the sites. So the site access is going to be generated via the associated accounts function in the web portal. If you have questions about that, there are application notes available on our website that explain, how to use those different account options. And basically the email address that's going to be used is that the small solar at CT Green Bank. This is this email address that you're going to give access to under associated accounts for that site so that the automatic reporting is able to be done. And there is an application note available on our website that goes through all that. So if you have any questions, do please look there first, because pretty much everything that you need to know is already available in text and downloadable format. Next state, New Hampshire, is basically the same in the regards of requirements, except they do not require a cellular connection modem. Again, you need the C2 meter, the ANSI C12-20, specifically for the state of New Hampshire. for the time being, and this is for the case for Connecticut as well, the reporting that we're doing for these SRECs is limited to the residential product, but we are working with New Hampshire as we get closer to releasing our three-phase product, so commercial reporting in New Hampshire will be available as well. It's not yet. The product has not been approved yet. It's technically not for sale yet, although we are taking orders, but it will be. So if that's something that you're looking for, keep your eyes open because we'll be getting there soon.
Before we jump into questions, the poll is open, so if you have questions, go ahead and submit them now. I do want to put out a couple notes. I've added some handouts during the presentation based on what I saw questions coming in about. So cellular commercial data sheet. So that is in the handouts. Cellular GSM residential data sheet is in the handouts. There were questions about the optimizers and string sizing. If you're interested in string sizing, that's at the bottom of the back sheet of the optimizer data sheet. So that's there. HD Wave data sheet I uploaded as well, and then the electricity meter for residential. So those are the handouts. We kind of ran out of room. I can only put up 5 handouts. So there were a couple other things that came up. The satellite performance ratio, I added a link to that in the chat section. So go ahead and take a look at that. Click on that link. And if you're interested in the Connecticut Green Bank app note, that is also in the chat section. So there's a link to that as well. So I'll leave those handouts up there. If there's any other things that come in as part of the Q&A, I'll try and add the link at least to the chat session to give you guys everything you need. Let's see here. So far, I have been able to get a bunch of questions. We got the 800 amp question already. There were a couple questions coming in about our European press release. So Intersolar Europe is going on this week. And we are showing a couple products there. You may have seen the press release. There are 3, let's say, products that I can think of off the top of my head. One is a new S-Series power optimizer. So this power optimizer, it's smaller. It's got advanced arc fault detection functionality. So you can find out some information about that from the press release. We will feature that at Intersolar in the United States. That's in July. I think July 11th is the first day of Intersolar. So if you want to join us at Intersolar, you can find out more about it there. I don't have any information. We're not selling it right now. It is being shown at the trade shows, but it's not available to order, so we didn't cover it in this presentation. The other thing you can see in the press release from the European products is the SE 100KUS. So this is the 100 kilowatt commercial 3-phase inverter. We will also plan to show that at Intersolar US as well. There are a couple other products that I think are Europe only, but those 2 I did want to talk about. We will be showing those at Intersolar, and so you can look forward to learning more about those. Okay, so kind of got that out of the way. Let's see. When will we see 800 parallel optimizers?
Those are available now.
Available now. So ask your distributor.
We have 2 P800 optimizer lines. The P800P, which is a parallel input, it has 4 sets of input connectors, so each module is connected independently. And we have the P800S, which is it just has 2 optimizer inputs, so similar to what you've seen in the past for other optimizer products, but it has higher ratings for current and voltage. Again, I always recommend for anybody, anytime you're doing a build out for a site, when you're doing a design, even if Site Designer isn't the tool that you use for final checks, do double check Site Designer to make sure that you're using the right optimizer for the right module. But the P800S is available for order now, and it will be shipping, I believe, within the month of June.
Did you cover the fuses?
I didn't. That's a good point. If you're using the P800, so the P800 product in general, both the P and the S, are a little bit different from all of our other previous versions of optimizers. Our previous versions of optimizers all limited the current on any given string to a maximum of 15 amps. And what that did was, I'm sorry. If you're familiar with the SE33K or the SE144, you're aware that that's got 3 inputs on it that are fused. Where this gets specific is the fusing requirements for 15 amps is using a 20 amp fuse. The difference of the P800 product is that it actually maintains the string current at 18 amps or less. That 18 amp limit means that the fuses need to be upsized. So there is a note basically in the product saying if you're using the P800 product, and I'm not sure if it's in the inverters or in the P800 box. I think it's in the P800
P800
boxes.
box.
Basically, it says that you'll need to replace those fuses that are currently installed in the 14.4 and 33K products, which are 20K fuses with 25 amp fuses.
Great. AC rapid shutdown for single phase. Maybe cover a little bit of the HD wave and then
Sure.
the standard.
Right now, basically what AC rapid shutdown means is that on a loss of power, the inverter will perform a rapid shutdown function and reduce the DC string voltage to less than 30 volts in under, 30 volts in under 30 seconds. There was some change between the 2014 NEC. There was a TIA released. Initially, that was 30 volts in under 10 seconds. For 2014 NEC, that's actually been amended to 30 volts in under 30 seconds. And then, which is also what it states in the 2017 NEC. The automatic rapid shutdown products that we're releasing. So right now we have all the HD Wave products, the 3, 3.8, and now we're shipping the 5K. Those have that built into them already. Our manual rapid shutdown was built into all of our previous generation inverters, but the HD Wave has the automatic rapid shutdown. So does the 14.4 and 33K inverters. We released that into the market, I believe, the beginning of last winter. So the 14.4 and 33K inverters have automatic rapid shutdown, lose AC power, they rapid shut down. As we're transitioning from all of our product lines over to the HD Wave platform, though, because that process takes a little while, what we're doing is going back and changing the part number, or changing the parts for the previous generation of inverters to include this function. It's a fairly small hardware change. We're taking the function out of the DCD portion of the inverter, putting it on the power board in the inverter itself. Which allows us to perform this function, without having to do a manual operation. In the next few months, we will have a 7.6, 10, 11.4 single phase versions of a rapid shutdown with the previous inverter technology, as well as the 9, 10, and 20K inverter, 3-phase inverters. So that's basically everything that's not an HD Wave and isn't a 14.4 or 33K. We're going to have basically a stopgap. There are some customers specifically in the state of Massachusetts, which has already adopted the 2017 NEC, that really needs that. So that's going to be the primary, place where that's desired. But it's also just a comfort of mind situation of knowing that you're not relying on a manual operation, however well labeled. When a firefighter comes up to the house and pulls the meter, everything's going to shut down.
Okay. Follow-up question on the P800. What type of modules would you use those with?
I have a slide on my computer, which I don't have with me at the moment, that actually has some breakdown of specifics. But basically the high power, I think it was high power LG 96 cell modules was one that was specifically mentioned.
96 is for SunPower.
Okay.
The high power LGs are 72.
Okay. And then also basically and I think it was for the parallel input that the bifacial modules, or am I getting that backwards? I haven't looked at that in a little while.
So SunPower is high voltage because it's a 5 cell. There are more cells, 96 cells. So the more cells, the more voltage. And then with the bifacials, it's high current because they tie together.
All right. So basically, it's vice versa. The P800 has a higher input current because it's got the input's paralleled. The P800S has a higher input voltage because the connections are in series. Voltage adds in series, current adds in parallel. That's where you get the higher of the two for each. And if you've got any questions about which to use, like I said, the Site Designer product, if you go in there, there are a ton of modules already in there. But if you don't see the module that you're actually wanting to use, it's got the opportunity to, the data sheet from the module, you can take and put that into the product, and it'll tell you what optimizer to use for a given location. Because temperature correction is necessary, but the tool does it for you.
So the parallel is the SunPower? Am I doing that right?
Sounds right.
Because the SunPower lower current, so you're going to add you're going to add the current together, and you want parallel to add the current.
I can't remember which of the other companies' products had the higher
Well, SunPower is
voltage versus current.
high voltage, low current. So I think that one's the parallel one. And then,
So basically, the P100P has a 14 amp ISC.
yeah, this is for 296 cell 5 inch. This is the 5 inch cells. That's the parallel. The serial is for 2 high power or bifacial. So that's
Okay.
your LG.
Yeah.
So serial for LG and then parallel for SunPower.
So those notes are available right at the top of the second page of the data sheet, which includes the P800 product.
Adding it into chat now.
Awesome. If you just look at the top of the note there, it's got the specific lines of the primary types of modules that you would use with it. They're not limited to that. One of the I get a lot of interesting questions sometimes, and one of the more recent ones actually was, there's a company called First Solar which makes one little like 2 foot by 2 foot modules, and they wanted to know if they could put 4 of them on a P600, and we did the math and found out that the numbers worked, and that was a totally fine solution. We make recommendations on the data sheet with that information on the top, but that's not a limitation. The hard numbers associated, the power output, the voltage, the current, those are hard numbers and those are hard limits. We don't allow oversizing of the DC optimizers. But the notes at the top that are specific, says where it says P300 for 60 cell modules, that's not a limit. You can use smaller modules and put more than one on there. Is not a problem. It's important that the math makes sense, though.
Okay. We are recording the webinar. If you want a recording of the webinar, please contact our inside sales guys. They will have a link to this recording. Okay. So let's see here. What do the weather sensors do?
So there's 3 weather sensors that are on the station that are included in the kit. There is an irradiance detector. Basically, that is installed on the module array in the same orientation as the array itself. So that's basically, it's a reference cell. So it's measuring how much power, how much irradiance the array gets. Then there's 2 other sensors. One is a ambient temperature sensor, and the other is a direct module temperature sensor, which is attached directly to the back of one of the modules in the array. What this does is allows our system to calculate how much power a system should be generating versus how much power it actually is generating. So if I've got a module, for instance, that should be making 300 watts, and I'm looking at a system that I don't have metering on, for instance, and I'm saying, well, I'm only seeing about 100 watts a day. Having this information would basically be able to give you kind of figuring out, okay, well, should I actually be producing more than I am? Performance ratio is based on, how much am I making as a ratio to how much I should be making. In a perfect world, you want to be at 1. Performance ratio of 1 means that you're making it just as much as you should be making. Situations like modules being dirty can actually, obviously degrade the amount of irradiance that gets to the module. So that's going to lower the overall output of the system, and you can compare those kind of effects to what it's actually doing. Because any given solar system is going to produce a different amount every day, based on the weather conditions, the temperature, the colder it is, modules make more power when they're colder because they've got a negative coefficient of generation for voltage. So perfect conditions are cold and bright, but it's not that condition all the time. So dirty panels, cloud cover, all these kind of things go into affecting it. So you never really know how much I should be making versus how much I am. So I think I kind of rambled a little bit there, but that cover the question, you think?
I think so. It's kind of filling a couple here. A site designer question. Is there going to be a Mac version? So we do plan, not necessarily, it is downloaded. You do need to download Site Designer. It is for PCs only at this time. There's an online version that's in the works. It'll probably be available in September.
2018. Not September of 2018, but January of 2018 is the current, kind of what we're hearing from headquarters. The new SolarEdge Site Designer tool is going to be awesome. I've seen some mock-ups of what it's going to be able to do. It'll actually have 3D modeling functionality. It'll have the ability to do a lot more impressive scaling and modeling for production. And it's going to be a web-based tool. So rather than being a downloaded tool where you have to download updates, when you go to use it, you'll create an account, you'll log into the tool. It'll make the system will operate. It'll basically work a little faster, and it'll have a lot more functionality. Right now, we've got most recent update that I heard was January of 2018. Sounds like Mike heard September.
Well, we heard for SPI we're going to show it.
Okay.
Maybe a scaled down version. I think
Okay.
less complete than what you're describing. It'll be basically show you that this module pairs with this optimizer, this inverter.
Okay.
This is how many you can put in a string. This is how few. And I don't know if they'll have an energy estimate at that point in time, but it's just basically a configuration.
Okay.
So,
and they may release it in stages of functionality.
Yeah, so. And they released satellite PR. It was a complete surprise. We looked at our webpage and we're like, wow, we have a satellite PR system now, so we better add it to the webinar.
Yeah.
So that, stay tuned. We might be as surprised as you. So we're kind of getting to it. I'd say, I've got a couple questions on new products, roadmap stuff. I mean, join us at InterSolar and you'll get an idea of what our roadmap is. Obviously, we don't disclose things ahead of time necessarily on a webinar, but join us at InterSolar and you can learn more about SolarEdge. So I think that's pretty much it. It's going to wrap it up. If we didn't get anything or you think of something later, add it to the comments section in the survey, and please fill out the survey. Let us know how we're doing. You'll receive the slides in a nice PDF format after the survey. If you are interested in getting a recording of this, just contact our inside sales team and they will be able to provide it. So thanks, JP.
You're very welcome. It was a pleasure.
Everybody have a great weekend and go Warriors, because that's the conference room we're in.
Yay, sports.
Yeah, it was a good game last night, so hope there were no Cleveland fans. All right, talk to you guys later.
Have
Thanks
a
for
great
joining.
I think I did it right. Stop showing screen.
There's always an error when we
okay.
Hit on the slide, and I think you'll have to hit escape. Go up to the top of the Apple button and then force quit the go to webinar. Yeah, go to meeting, just force quit it.